people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Newly crowned undisputed lightweight champion Devin Haney was asked about Gervonta Davis's WBA regular lightweight title, to which he responded, throw it in the trash can.
He might as well.
At this point, the WBA regular title is little more than just a paperweight. Under normal circumstances, such a title, such a secondary belt, could be used as a segue to fight for the full title. In this instance, it could be used to fight for not just the full WBA title, but all the titles, all the belts in the lightweight division. And you guys know how I feel about it.
You know.
Mayweather Promotions will make no attempt to get Devin Haney on board for a Gervonta Davis fight because they don't want to pay to play.
And sometimes you have to.
To get at what it is you want. And the question is, does either Gervonta Davis' team or the people at Mayweather Promotions, do they want to see him fighting for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world? Or
are they not interested?
It's not a secret that here in America, Gervonta Davis has more marquee value, does better at the box office, does better at the gate than Devin Haney does, but that doesn't change the environment. That doesn't change what you have to do. You have to pay to play, and you have to pay to play because Devin Haney was already making very good money at Matchroom, and even now that he's not with them.
The numbers floating around in the boxing cosmos for his last fight.
The George Kambosos Jr. fight in the Land Down Under, approximately 2 weeks ago, a little over that. He's estimated to have made $2.8, close to $3 million for that fight. So what do you think he's going to want for a fight with Gervonta Davis?
What do you think the asking price is going to be for that fight?
What, you're expecting the lightweight undisputed champion of the world to take a pay cut? Is that what you're expecting? After he traveled abroad to hostile territory, to the other guy's home turf, the other guy's neck of the woods, you're expecting that he's going to come back to America so he can take a back seat to Gervonta Davis and take a pay cut?
Don't hold your breath.
I mean, at minimum, you can expect that he's going to want something comparable to what he just got for George Kambosos Jr. in Australia. And if Gervonta Davis can't guarantee him that kind of scratch, that kind of cash in America, then what kind of cash cow is he really?
That's a legitimate question.
For perspective, when Anthony Joshua wanted a shot at Charles Martin's newly obtained IBF title, the red belt, he paid that guy well in excess of what Charles Martin was worth here stateside. Charles Martin wasn't a draw in America or the United Kingdom, but Anthony Joshua and the people at Matchroom, they understood, they knew. You have to pay to play, you have to make sacrifices. And they sacrificed something like what, $6-7 million? An estimated multi-million-dollar payday for Charles Martin.
He wasn't going to make that kind of money fighting anybody else, not even Deontay Wilder.
Not in 2016. You want to know what Wilder was making in 2016? A little over $1 million, whereas Charles Martin was guaranteed well in excess of that because Anthony Joshua,
he already had the kind of marquee value that could finance such an offer and finance such a fight.
Even if it was well in excess of what Charles Martin was worth on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, he could afford to pay to play because he had that kind of following already generated, that kind of revenue. So he was able to make it happen, him and his team. And if Gervonta Davis want a shot at all of Devin Haney's belts,
Gervonta Davis has already been on pay-per-view 4 times.
You can't get Leonard Alabita. Shut the fuck up about how much he's a star. So if he's a star and he's the biggest draw anywhere at or around these weights, surely he can finance a substantial offer to Devin Haney to get him in the ring. If he wants to get him in the ring.
Does he want to get him in the ring?
You can't pay this guy what you pay Isaac Cruz. You can't pay this guy what you pay Rolly Romero or Mario Barrios. You're talking about the undisputed lightweight champion of the world.
Did you guys hear what Leonard Alabi had to say about it 2 weeks ago, ahead of Haney versus Kambosos?
Bringing something to the table. And you got to bring, and again, it's just because you have all the belts, that don't mean that you're a big-time attraction to make a big event for a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? Because we see that right now. There's a reason why they're fighting in Australia. Would that fight be big in the United States among the diehard boxing fans? Is that a pay-per-view fight?
That was approximately 2 weeks ago, ahead of Haney versus Kambosos, before Devin actually won all those belts from George.
You think his attitude has changed?
They don't care about Devin Haney's status as this division's undisputed champion. That's not what they're fighting for. They didn't care about those belts when Vasyl Lomachenko had them, or when Teofimo Lopez had them, or when George Kambosos Jr. had them, or now that Devin Haney.
This is why Gervonta Davis should just take Devin Haney's advice.
Chuck the belt. It's not the full-fledged world title anyway. It's a secondary title. You might as well chuck it because you're not going to use it as a segue to eventually challenge Devin Haney or the winner of Haney versus Kambosos II, assuming George ends up exercising his rematch clause. In any event...
You're not interested in fighting him. You're not interested in those belts, right?
Right. You're bigger than belts, aren't you? You're the best thing smoking right now. Who needs belts?
In all likelihood, Gervonta is staying on the Mayweather promotion side of things.
He's not going anywhere, and I never expected him to. I expect that they're going to maintain that biosphere of theirs, and they're going to keep everything in-house as much as they possibly can. So if that's what they plan on doing, what do you need a WBA secondary title for? As a segue to what?
The only thing that title's good for is eventually challenging for the full title, but you're not about to do that, so...
What are you still hanging on to it for? You might as well relinquish it. Let somebody else pick it up. Somebody who's interested. Somebody who's actually interested in becoming this division's undisputed champion. Somebody who's interested in taking on Devin Haney. I've said it before, and I'll say it here again. Gervonta Davis, in many ways, is the Harlem Globetrotters of boxing, you understand. The Harlem Globetrotters, they don't actually go to the finals, now do they? And neither will Gervonta Davis.
I mean, that's the point. You don't care about unifying titles or becoming an undisputed champion, right?
Right. According to Leonard, you don't need nothing. You don't need nobody. You don't need Devin Haney or George Kambosos Jr. before him. You don't need those belts. You're already a big draw in your own neck of the woods. So what are you hanging on to a secondary WBA title for? Is it so Showtime can bill your fights as title fights, even though that's just a secondary title?
Is it so you can hoodwink people into thinking that you're actually a champion?
Is it so that you can continue to run around masquerading as a reigning, defending champion? Is that what that's all about?
The way I see it, he might as well bin that belt.
The hell's the point in hanging on to it? Devin Haney may not even have the option of facing Gervonta Davis next anyway, because George Kambosos Jr., he posted this via his social media account, emoji of an hourglass and himself back in the gym, back in training, presumably for a second fight, presumably for a rematch. His promoter, Lou DiBella, said, I think he's going to exercise the rematch clause, yeah. I'd be surprised if he didn't. I think the rematch will be difficult for him again, but I think he can fight better.
I don't.
And it's not because I think George is a bad fighter. George isn't a bad fighter. He just doesn't have the tools for this particular assignment. He's not going to become a completely different fighter overnight. There are some things he can work on, some things he can do, but nothing I think will secure him the victory.
He can try to be busier in the second fight.
Double and triple up on the jab as he attempts to get within striking distance of Devin Haney.
Pumping the lead hand out there to keep Devin's guns holstered.
As George inches forward, looking to land big, land hard, mid-range to inside, he can try to do that, but he just can't match Devin's hand speed or foot speed.
You can try to come in at a slight crouch, be busier with the lead hand.
You can try to take more chances in a second fight, try to take more chances in a rematch, be busier, but he's just not a pressure fighter, and he's not going to become one overnight. He doesn't have the hand speed or foot speed to match and catch up to Devin Haney, who would likely be on the move.
Stay out of harm's way, move lateral, staying on the perimeter of the ring.
Keeping distance between himself and what would be an advancing George Kambosos Jr. If George opens up, I see a situation where he gets hit more.
Because of what he ain't got. If he opens up more often, he gets hit more often.
Well, that's what I anticipate. Because that pressure-based style doesn't seem to come naturally to George.
See a situation where he takes more chances that cost him.
That's how I see a rematch going if George attempts to become more aggressive in a second fight, in a rematch. If he attempts to apply pressure on Devin Haney.
I don't think the rematch goes any differently than the first fight did. I got Devin winning that as well, on points.
Now, George is well within his rights to exercise the rematch clause incorporated into the initial contract. He's not subject to criticism, nor should he be, if he decides to exercise his rematch clause the same way that Anthony Joshua exercised his rematch clause for the Usyk fight. He's well within his rights to do so, and
No, I wouldn't criticize him for it. I'm just saying, if there is a second fight, I don't think he wins.
I don't think it would go any differently the second time out. If I had to guess what's best for George at this time, well, he just made himself a lot of fucking money. An estimated $10 million with this Devin Haney fight, and he should go spend some of that money.
He's still one of the bigger names at the weight. When he comes back,
If he were to take a brief hiatus to regroup and retool, retune, fine-tune things.
and work on them.
I mean, ultimately, it's up to George. It's George's decision what he wants to do next, and if what he wants is a rematch, I can hardly criticize him for it. I understand it.
I just don't think it goes any differently in a second fight. I think he'd be looking at his second professional defeat.
That's what I think, and I think that given the aesthetic of the first fight, you won't find too many people clawing at their faces to see a rematch. As far as entertainment value and entertaining fights go, that wasn't an entertaining fight. It was pretty lopsided.
You ask around, most people tell you they don't want to see a second fight.
So what does that do to the fight's marquee value? In my post-fight recap, I talked about how, the aesthetic of this fight, it's not the kind of fight you want to see for a second time. And if a lot of people don't want to see the fight for a second time, doesn't that then mean that the second fight ain't going to be worth what the first fight was worth? At the same money, it's not going to be there.
If the rematch isn't in high demand,
Do they, in fact, run it back in Australia? And if they do, does the rematch get the same reception that the first fight got? Well, those questions, they need answers, because those questions directly address the fight's marquee value and just how much money there will be in the pot.
I don't know. We'll find out soon enough if there's going to be a rematch.
In other news, Floyd Mayweather is set to announce his next exhibition fight at a press conference on Monday in Las Vegas. He'll be going back to Japan with Rizin after having previously knocked out Tenshin Natsukawa in an exhibition on one of their shows in 2018.
My feelings haven't changed. I think he's strapped for cash.
Because of the frequency of these endeavors, the number of exhibition matches he's participating in. After the Logan Paul exhibition last year, he said he didn't think he would do any more, and he subsequently moved on to trying to reschedule the next one. It was supposed to be with some social media influencer in the Middle East named Money Kicks. That fell through. He ended up doing an exhibition with his old sparring partner instead, and just weeks after that exhibition match, we're hearing about another.
This one's in Japan.
With his old buddies at Rizin, he's scheduling these exhibition matches at a greater rate than some active professional boxers. Consider that Floyd Mayweather Jr. in some ways is keeping a busier schedule than both the Charlo brothers.
Keeping a busier schedule than Mikey Garcia.
At least right now he is. Mikey, who's coming right off that loss to Spain's own Sandor Martin. We don't know when or where his next fight's gonna be, but comes to Floyd, we've actually got some fight news.
And it's because of the frequency of these endeavors that it seems to come from a need more than a want.
After the Logan Paul exhibition match last year, he said he didn't want to do any more of these things.
And he scheduled another and another.
In Japan, in the Far East. Why not in America? Why not do one of those for the American fight fans? And maybe it's because these exhibition matches that he's having, they're tough sells, especially after that Logan Paul exhibition match.
Who really enjoyed watching that? Hell, who really bought it?
It was reported to have brought in an estimated 1 million pay-per-view buys, and I don't think that was 1 million fight fans that bought that thing. I get the sense that if 1 million people bought that exhibition match, a good number of them must have been big Logan Paul fans, because as far as boxing fans want to see boxing matches, not exhibitions.
If you're going to do an exhibition match in the United States, you're going to need some kind of A-list celebrity.
As there are already enough B and C and even some D-listers staging quote-unquote celebrity boxing matches of their own.
Social media influencers.
Social media influencers like Alicia Megan, who's supposed to be having a celebrity, quote-unquote celebrity boxing match with Black China, the reality star. It's an oversaturated market, a market that has been oversaturated due to the success of the Mike Tyson Joy Rones Jr. exhibition match. That really feels like it's what sparked all of this.
That and Jake Paul.
Now anybody with a halfway decent following wants to lace up the gloves.
Thus, the market is oversaturated, and many of these celebrity boxing matches are a tough sell.
Thus, it's not a coincidence that Floyd's last exhibition match didn't happen in the United States. It happened abroad.
So will the next one.
The American fight fans, the American audience, They don't have the stomach for this stuff anymore. Unless it's an A-list celebrity that Floyd's opposite the ring, they're not going to pay.
They don't want to see it.
Why isn't Floyd staging these things with A-list celebrities, some of his A-list buddies? Well, maybe Logan Paul accusing Floyd of not paying him for their exhibition match last year, maybe that might have something to do with it. I mean,
He didn't actually take Floyd to court.
he said he was going to. He said he was going to sue Floyd, though I don't know if he actually did. Better still, the fact that these allegations were being levied against Floyd so publicly by a well-known guy, more or less, a social media influencer, could that have damaged Floyd's reputation?
I wouldn't rule it out.
There is so much left to speculation, though. One thing I know as a fight fan is I'm not going to fork over my hard-earned dollars, my cash, to Floyd Mayweather to watch him waltz around the ring with an old sparring partner, the way he just did out there in the Middle East.
It's just ridiculous.
And I ain't got the foggiest fucking idea what money, if any, Floyd Mayweather Jr. made from that event that was supposed to go down on the helipad at the Burj Al Arab, but was subsequently moved because apparently some politician or some sheik over there passed away.
I think they had to move the event from Dubai over to Abu Dhabi.
Something like that. It was a rather unorthodox situation because it didn't read the same way as staging an event at Madison Square Garden or staging an event at the MGM Grand, the O2 Arena, where you mean to generate revenue.
Well, you're going to generate revenue at the gate.
Generate revenue at the box office by way of your network broadcast partner. You know, it's not like Showtime or Fox was involved with this thing. They weren't. So I really don't know what money, if any, this event generated. Who actually paid to see Floyd spar with an old sparring partner?
Because I know I did.
Did you? Did any of you guys out there actually buy that thing? You know, Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Don Moore.
An event that was a lot smaller in scale than Maymac.
And smaller in scale even than Mayweather versus Logan Paul, last year's exhibition match. This event seemed smaller in scale, certainly smaller in scale than those events. The saving grace for Floyd is that Risen, while it's not a very well-known outfit here in America, in the West, in the Far East, it is a legitimate promotion, a legitimate promotional outfit. And I can only deduce that because his next event is going to be promoted by them,
They'll be the ones putting the money up.
they'll be the ones tasked with promoting his next event, his next exhibition match, whatever it turns out to be, whoever it's against.
Nobody we know around here, but presumably somebody with an audience out there.
Otherwise, why go to Japan? You often hear it said that Floyd Mayweather, in his heyday, was the biggest draw in boxing. And in many ways, that's true, but in some ways, it isn't. He didn't sell those pay-per-views alone. I can't stress that enough. He did what he did with Oscar because Oscar had a following, and so did he. He did what he did with Manny because Manny had a following, and so did he. He did what he did with Conor McGregor and Canelo Alvarez.
He didn't sell those fights alone.
Whatever he's about to do, he won't sell that alone either.
He's gonna need help.